Greetings and welcome to this episode of Everybody's Business. I'm your host, Jerry Ross, and in studio with me today is Rachel Madsen.
Hi, everyone.
Glad to have you here again this morning.
Thank you. Always
glad to have somebody to be my audience.
Oh, yes. I'm a good listener,
and
I think.
You have to laugh at all the right moments.
Do you have your button for it?
That's right.
On command.
On-demand laughter.
Right.
Well, at least it's not canned laughter like you see on TV.
Yeah, that's true.
Those kind of irritate me sometimes.
Sometimes. But then, yeah, sometimes.
Today, the business topic I would like to talk about is diversification. That's taking your business and adding something maybe to a new market. Maybe it's to a new target market. Maybe it's a new service that you provide that is based on using the experience and the expertise that you have. One of my businesses was in lighting, and we diversified from just doing entertainment lighting and theme parks and those kind of things to doing military lighting, because the military needed high intensity lighting too. And so we didn't have to really change the product much. We just diversified into a different market.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that is very different from the entertainment.
And so we lit up the shuttle on the launch pad at night using lights, the same lights that we were using at Pleasure Island at Walt Disney World.
Wow.
And the Boeing Sea Launch platform, and we did Vandenberg Air Force Base. And so there were military applications for the high intensity lighting that we were doing, but we didn't have to change the product. We just found another market to diversify into. And so many times when entrepreneurs are faced with a challenge, and sometimes even when the market changes, that could be difficult for their business, look for ways to diversify. Look for ways to take your experience, your knowledge, and your expertise and serve another market in a different way.
Wow.
Another example that I like to use is baking soda.
Oh, okay. I think I know where you're going with this.
Wait, do you have baking soda in your refrigerator?
I do. Okay, so I was right.
It used to be used for baking.
It was.
And now everybody has one in the refrigerator to take away the smells. But I would love to have been in the room when they came up with the idea that it would take smells out of a garbage disposal.
Wow. Why is it it's just now clicking with that too? I learn something every day.
And now you buy baking soda, you take it home and you pour it out.
Yeah.
I love that idea. So finding different ways to use the same product or your same skills, your same expertise is a great way to grow your business. So that's today's business topic. Who do we have coming up for an interview today?
We have Michael Dermer. He is the founder of The Lonely Entrepreneur.
That's right. And he's a great partner here of the National Entrepreneur Center.
He is. He helped with NEC Online.
He did. And so we use a lot of his content for the online version of the National Entrepreneur Center. So maybe we'll take a break and hear from the National Entrepreneur Center's online learning platform in partnership with The Lonely Entrepreneur. We'll be right back.
The National Entrepreneur Center has made it easy for you to learn business principles from anywhere at any time with NEC Online. As a supplement to all the great resources at the National Entrepreneur Center, you now have free access to over 300 learning modules that you can access at any time. Thanks to the generous sponsorship of Wells Fargo and our partnership with The Lonely Entrepreneur, you can access this powerful online learning platform for free. Learn on your own time and at your own pace. Access product reviews and participate in weekly group coaching opportunities. Right now, the only thing missing is you. So check out our online learning platform today at nationalec.org. That's nationalec.org. Did I mention it's free?
And we're back. Today we have a treat for you. Our guest is Michael Dermer, who is an entrepreneur, speaker, and lawyer, widely hailed as a pioneer of the movement to reward employees for healthy behavior. Just a few years out of law school, Michael left his job as a corporate lawyer to pursue his dream of being his own boss, that entrepreneur itch. With a novel and innovative idea such as rewarding employees for healthy behavior, which, by the way, saves the healthcare system a bundle of cash, he founded his own company called S1E7. For 10 years, he worked to build his own team, win customers, and convert the skeptics. And after landing clients like Deloitte and General Motors, he also landed private equity. That should have put and sent one on the path to fame and riches. However, that was also when the Great Recession hit. In a matter of days, his dream spiraled into a nightmare. Bankrupt customers, angry investors, credit and capital disappeared, and he was scrambling to save the business that he took a decade to build. Well, after 2 years of struggle, the business recovered and was bought out. But this overall experience caused Michael to discover the importance of overcoming the flawed perspectives that sometimes develop when you're dealing with such a stressful situation. He also saw the value of seeing those challenges in a different light, which brings us to the launch of The Lonely Entrepreneur, which we're going to talk about today. The Lonely Entrepreneur is headquartered in New York and provides content for the National Entrepreneur Center's online learning platform. That has been a critical partner for us during a critical time in our country. So let's bring in my friend, Michael Dermer. Hello, Michael.
Jerry, such a pleasure to be there. I wish I could live up to that description, but thank you for having me.
Well, I tell you, you do that every day. And our partnership with the online learning platform that we've launched here has really been critical to serving folks from home during this time of COVID.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's been great working with you guys. And, we're all, you, me, and our respective organizations are just trying to have an impact during these, difficult times for entrepreneurs.
That's right. And it's been my pleasure to have worked with you and your team. So tell me about The Lonely Entrepreneur. And, first of all, we got to start with the name. How did you come up with The Lonely Entrepreneur?
After I'd gone through that whole experience with my healthcare company, I was fortunate enough to have a great exit. I was literally just in New York helping entrepreneurs for fun. And one of them said to me, being an entrepreneur is really lonely. And I was like, that's interesting. Forgot about it. And then about 2 weeks later, I was with a friend of mine walking down the street and I told him lonely entrepreneur. He's like, what'd you just say? And I said, lonely entrepreneur. He goes, that's it. I'm like, what do you mean? He goes, that's what we all share, the struggle. And I was like, yeah. And he dragged me into a Starbucks in Union Square and said, watch this. And he screamed, who here is a lonely entrepreneur? And, everybody raised their hand. And I was like, okay, you don't have to hit me over the head. And that was it. That was just the beginning of the end. And I really, thought it was, I was incredibly lucky to have one idea, rewarding people for being healthy, that I thought was important and meaningful and could have an impact. But then to have a second one to launch The Lonely Entrepreneur and give people, as we like to say, have a better chance of turning their passion into success. What would be a better thing to do than to wake up every day and do that? And that was it.
I think sometimes, the old saying is it's lonely at the top. And so as entrepreneurs, we're making a lot of decisions. And, sometimes I would come home and say to my wife, I need to talk to someone that doesn't work for me because sometimes you do get lonely trying to make decisions that's the best thing for the organization. And yet you spend a whole lot of time with those people that have a vested interest in the company. Secondly, I think that what happens is a lot of us feel like we need to do it by ourselves. We need to do it alone. And that is so wrong.
Yeah. What's so interesting, Jerry, is that originally, especially when we went to publishers, when we did our book, people, it's like, the word lonely, and it's not really a literal thing. It's more so, when you hear the lonely entrepreneur, it's really just the struggle. We could walk, down the street in Orlando and walk in any coffee shop and say lonely entrepreneur. It's really hard. And you happen to mention a couple of issues, but there are so many different issues that are implicated by entrepreneurism. There's the business side, there's the personal side, financial, your family, emotional, ego, like there's all this stuff. And nobody really gave us a map. So even people with wonderful ideas and great passion struggle, not because they're not talented, but because it is actually just really hard.
And so what is The Lonely Entrepreneur? What did you do? Where did you take that idea and what does it do today?
My desire, what I saw was there were so many people out there that had passion and great ideas that were maxing out their credit cards and fighting over the dinner table. And they had real good stuff. My desire, as you know, Jerry, was not write a book and stand in front of 20 people and say, here's how to write a business plan. I wanted to help people all over the place. And I was a technology guy. I built a healthcare technology company. And so I was like, how do you help these people at scale? So what we saw, which was really surprising to us, was that while there were lots and lots of resources for entrepreneurs, they were all over the place. So we were like, hey, why couldn't we put these all in one place, right? So that's what we did. And we said, if we wanted to build something that was technology that could put things in one place, what would you need? And we said, well, you need knowledge, right? There's a bunch of stuff you got to learn. You need tools, right? Like, how do I what's a business plan? I need budget templates. I need legal agreements. I know what vendors to pick. And I need ongoing support. I need somebody I can turn to all the time, but do it in a scalable way. So if there's somebody in Iowa or Peru, right, that you could reach all of them. So we built, as you know, this thing called the Lonely Entrepreneur Learning Community, with the goal of really trying to provide this one-stop shop that gives them a lot of the knowledge, tools, and support that gives them a better chance of success.
Well, that's much like how the National Entrepreneur Center came into existence. Is people looked around and said, we have people running all over town looking for coaching and training and resources. What if we just put that all in one place? And so today we have, a physical location with 14 organizations that provide resources. And so that's why when we connected, it was the logical next step to connect with. If you're coming to one place in Central Florida that you can get help, now you can come to one place online and get help from anywhere at any time.
Yeah. And I think also, Jerry, as you and I have talked about many times, the physical location stuff and the one-on-one, if you really had the right type of one-on-one coach, they would be with you almost every day, right? Like, there's so much foundational stuff that you need. If somebody goes to a coach or a mentor and says, hey, I need help with my investor deck, that implicates your financial statements, your business strategy, your team. Like, there's all this stuff that goes into it. So part of it is the physical location, but part of it is, how do you go back to a foundational set of tools, right, that I can go back to and say, oh, okay, my coach told me I need to learn more about, how I do my projections for my investment stuff. So I can go back to someplace and look through what that is. So even in the great mentor networks, one of the things the mentors struggle with is they don't have the ability to spend as much time with entrepreneurs as they need to. So hopefully our resource, like we're doing with you guys, gives that foundational resource they can always go back to.
Well, it's a great supplement. And people listening today, there are everywhere. There are resources like the Small Business Development Center or the SCORE chapters or the National Association of Women Business Owners to provide that one-on-one coaching physically. But many times when you have that question, it's not between 9 and 5. It may be at midnight when you're working on that pitch deck. And so having access to those resources 24/7 is a great supplement to whatever coaching or mentor network you're connected with.
Yep. And we felt the support part of it was important too. So our online community where people get questions answered and the group coaching we do every week online and sessions like this are also meant to be mechanisms where people get the answers when they need you. I can't tell you, Jerry, whether it's Orlando or Nairobi, right? We'll get a question in the middle of the night from somebody who's never heard of entrepreneurism before that asks a question and say, what's a business plan? So the ability to kind of touch them where they are, even pre-COVID, and now, of course, as you said, with the situation we're facing with COVID, even more important.
That's true. Michael, if people have heard you, how do we connect with you? What's the best way to connect with you on your social media channels? And what's the best way to check out your online learning platform?
Yeah, so it's just lonelyentrepreneur.com. And our everything on social media is The Lonely Entrepreneur. And obviously The Lonely Entrepreneur book is available on Amazon. So lonelyentrepreneur.com is the best place to find us. Well,
and when you're out there on your playground by yourself, you don't have to be lonely. You can connect with the lonelyentrepreneur.com.
100%.
So when we come back, we're going to talk about your advice to entrepreneurs. But if someone wants to connect with the National Entrepreneur Center online platform, all you need to do is go to the nationalec.org website and click on online learning, and you can speak with a coach or you can connect online to over 300 learning modules anytime from anywhere. We'll be right back.
GrowFL is the only statewide program focused exclusively on assisting second stage companies with 10 to 100 employees and approximately $1 million in sales by providing strategic research, peer mentoring, and a variety of educational programs to accelerate the sustainable growth. Through identifying core competences of a business and developing a sustainable strategy for growth, GrowFL works directly with organizations plans to overcome unique business challenges, provides strategic insight, identifies target markets, and works with you to ensure the business is on the path towards success.
Now, here is your host, Jerry Ross.
And we're back. We're talking with Michael Dermer, who's the founder of The Lonely Entrepreneur, which is the provider of content for the National Entrepreneur Center's online learning platform. We've been talking, Michael, about what you do and how you got started. So let's talk about those folks that are listening that are thinking about starting a business, or maybe have started a business, or in the process of growing, or facing some of the challenges like you have. What advice do you have for an entrepreneur that's looking to start a business today?
I think, Jerry, the most important thing that an entrepreneur needs to do is to, and this is kind of our language, find a playground where nobody else is playing, right? We all use the same social media. We all do podcasts. We all use email marketing. We all use the same stuff, right? So if we all use the same stuff, why does somebody win? And I think a lot of times entrepreneurs go to, I'm going to create a website, I'm going to do email marketing, I'm going to do a podcast, but it's what you put into those vehicles that really make a difference, right? So I'll take an example of my old business, rewarding people for being healthy. At the time, there were lots of loyalty programs out there and reward programs. Every airline, credit card, hotel had a loyalty program, and they were run by really big companies, right? Big multi-billion-dollar companies ran these programs. All we did was find a playground, healthcare, where nobody else is playing, right? And it gave us the ability to compete. So the biggest thing is that once you find that playground, once you find your spot, then what you put into all of those channels is what makes a difference. So you have to take time up front to define that playground, right? And you wake up every day going, okay, this is where I win. I'll give you an example. I was working with somebody who is doing financial literacy, right? There's no shortage of financial literacy out there. There's tons and tons of programs, like Absolutely. There is with everything, right? It turns out that she was from the medical profession. She used to be a nurse. And she was saying that a lot of her clients were nurses. I was like, well, that's your playground, right? You know what it's like to be a nurse. You know what it's like to work 14 hours a day. You know what it's like and how that impacts your finances. And so she went from being one of many to one of one, because now, right, she's known as the financial literacy company for the medical profession, right? And it's those types of finding that playground, to me, is the most important thing an entrepreneur can do.
Well, and that keeps you doing what you know something about. A lot of times people will come in and say, I want to get into this business. And I say, well, do you know anything about that? Well, no, but I really like it. I say, well, I like the NBA, but I'm never going to play there. And so sometimes you have to look at what your experience and your expertise is in, because by the time you go try to learn a new industry to get up and running, it's too late. The industry's changed and you've run out of money.
And part of that playground is this knowledge and know-how, right? If I know what it's like to be a nurse, and I know what it's like to have long shifts and have the doctors rely on you, the way that you talk about that, right? That's where that know-how comes out. Think about if you walked into, I've had the pleasure of being where the National Entrepreneur Center is down in Orlando. Think about if you walked in the mall and I said, hey, Jerry, where do you go to get good food? Right? You'll tell me, go here, but don't go here.
Right.
And
obviously, I know where to find good food.
Exactly. And so, the ability for that know-how to come through in the playground.
Yes.
Right? Because we would say things like to these big companies we were competing with, there's 3 things you should never do when you're running a health reward program. And clients would say, well, what are they? And you're like, that's why you hire us. Right? It's the whole point of it is when you define your playground, part of that playground is because you know it, right? And if you went for a run in the neighborhood, you know where the potholes are, and that's the value you bring to your customers.
That's right. And so utilizing your strength and making whatever industry that you're in, using that expertise and that knowledge to differentiate yourself.
Yep.
Great. What is one thing that an entrepreneur should or should not do?
When they're evaluating their business idea, when they're evaluating, an employee, they should they should not necessarily do it with people that have a vested interest in them, right? So if I'm have the same same last name as you, or I'm dating you, or I'm your brother, or I'm your like if you really want somebody to evaluate your idea, it shouldn't be one of them. It should be somebody that you respect, whose your business acumen you respect, but doesn't really have a vested interest in you. That will be candid for you and say, hey, listen, I actually think this is a good idea, but you have to make sure you do this. Or I don't think it's a good idea. When we tend to go to the people that care about us.
Right.
And the people that care about us rarely say what we really need to hear, which is, hey, this is good, but it's only good if you do X, Y, and Z.
Right. Because they love you and they want you to be successful. And so I always say you have to get outside your circle because people will say to you, I love the way you make your cookies. And so you should get into the cookie business. And I say, you got to get outside your circle to test the cookies. But a quick way to check that is to say, okay, I have a dozen right here. Write me a check. And people tend to say, oh, I got to go. Time's running out. And so
think about when you're hiring an employee. When you're hiring an employee and you're kind of been working really hard and you need that employee, right? And they need to understand nuclear physics, and you're like, we can just teach them that, right? But if you put that employee in front of somebody who was completely objective, they'd be like, no, this is not the right person for you. You need somebody that knows nuclear physics. So exactly like you said.
Exactly. To point out those things that we don't see, or those things that we don't want to see, because we're in the heat of the battle. We're trying to make payroll at the end of the week and pay rent at the end of the month. And so sometimes we get in a hurry. Do you think this is a good time for entrepreneurs, businesses to get started, or those that are started looking at growth?
It's interesting. You have, it's a double-edged sword right now. Number one, it's easier than ever to start businesses, right? Building websites, launching social media, right? The tools that are out there, you can launch businesses very, very, very quickly. On the other end, you have obviously what's going on in the economy. And frankly, even pre-COVID, just the level of competition, right? The level of competition that existed pre-COVID, but post-COVID, every yoga instructor went online, right?
That's right.
So you've got this heightened degree of competition. So I think it goes back to what we were talking about before, this whole idea of a playground, that it requires you even more to do it. Now, the one good thing is that it's certainly, in a lot of ways, if you're a restaurant, it's easier now to start something new than to have something existing, because in a lot of times, something existing, you have existing cost structure, right? And
That's
existing
right.
Obligations. Whereas when you come in new, the way that you negotiate things and the way you put things together. So it's going to be, I know we're in the midst of COVID. Entrepreneurism is the lifeblood. Technology and consolidation and offshoring is going to continue to shrink corporate America. So we've got to learn to be entrepreneurs. We've just got to be able to learn how to do it in a hyper-competitive environment.
Well, and some of that is by embracing the technology that we've seen come about just during the 6 months of COVID, like Zoom and WebEx and some of the virtual conferences that you're seeing pop up. It's going to change the model of business, but that's also an opportunity for those businesses that are creative and innovative.
Absolutely, 100%.
We're going to take a break and hear from one of our sponsors, and we'll be back. We're talking with Michael Dermer, who is the founder of The Lonely Entrepreneur. So stay right there. Don't go away. We'll be right back.
The National Entrepreneur Center in Orlando, Florida, has been around since 2003 and today is home to 14 business support organizations who have a single mission: to help you grow your business. Through free business coaching, low-cost training, and valuable business connections, these 14 business support organizations assist thousands of entrepreneurs each year in starting, growing, and scaling their businesses. So why not visit the website at nationalec.org today, or give us a call at 407-420-4848 to discover how you might take your business to the next level. And by the way, the National Entrepreneur Center is funded entirely through local sponsors, which include Walt Disney World Resort, the University of Central Florida, the City of Orlando, and Orange County government, just to name a few. So let's get connected today and get growing. Check out our website at nationalec.org.
And we're back. We're talking with the founder and president, CEO, and all those other good titles of The Lonely Entrepreneur out of New York City. Michael Dermer is with us, and he's a provider of the content for the National Entrepreneur Center online learning platform, but he's also a good friend and advocate for small business. So, Michael, I'd like to pivot and talk a little bit about COVID. And using the term pivot seems to be what we've been doing for the last 6 months. So, tell me, how has COVID affected your business, and what kind of things have you pivoted to?
You know, it's interesting, Jerry. Our business has really taken off because, even pre-COVID, more and more people were doing, using online platforms. We've also, as you know, launched a Black Entrepreneur Initiative to support a lot of the Black entrepreneurs in the country. And, so I think for us, for Lonely Entrepreneur, the use of digital platforms to try to help entrepreneurs is a growing market, even pre-COVID, and is growing like crazy. I think the biggest thing that we saw was that so many of our entrepreneurs that we help are struggling. And as you shared with your audience before, we went through that kind of crazy circumstance in 2008. So we just wanted to try to help and give back as much as we could. So as you know, we launched this thing called the Entrepreneur Survival Guide, which was a free guide we gave away to everybody to try to give them a better chance of success about, what are the techniques and tools you have to use in the midst of a crisis. So for us, what we felt was really what they were feeling, and just to try to help any way we could.
Well, and when you've been through it, you certainly have empathy for folks that are going through it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, and the survival guide was something that we were anxious to provide through our online learning platform, is to get people access to that, to say any resources we can bring you to help get through this period. Another thing that we saw was, when as training moved online, as online learning began to grow, we saw that clients were more accepting of that. A lot of clients were saying, before COVID, were coming to live events, and they were networking together and coming to training and then doing networking. And we're saying, I'd rather come in and speak to someone personally, where we were forced into the acceptance of the technology. And now people are really liking that.
Yeah. Well, I think also, we did not define as a society that entrepreneurism implicates hundreds of skills, right? We just said, go figure it out. And if you talk to a mentor for a little bit, you get there. As opposed to, right, there's this, it's almost like the analogy I use all the time for those in your audience who are mothers. The day after you had your first child, did you wake up and go, I'm great at this mom thing?
No way.
No way, right? You're like, I might kill this little person if I'm not careful, right? So
I need some sleep.
Right. But I think with respect to entrepreneurship, one of the reasons why people are starting to be more acceptive is partly COVID, but partly for people that have been through it, they're like, man, that's a lot. It's a lot. It implicates all the things I'm saying. So if it is hundreds of skills that an organization has to perform, even the question, Jerry, you raised before, which one should I do and not do? Right?
Right.
When all of these things cause you to waste time and money, like real time, real money, I think people are open to the idea that this is hard. It's lots of skills. I need to be able to kind of continually advance those skills. And that's what ultimately gives me a better chance of success.
Well, and I think also to become a lifelong learner, technology changes, the economy changes, and there are trends that are changing that if you don't stay up with it, a week old could be a year old, and that's a competitive disadvantage. So
think about how many industries just shifted online, and now everybody's going, how do I compete with everybody online? Right?
Exactly. Well, and I look at commercial real estate, as we pivoted to people working from home, you say, well, do I need all that office space? And so while this will be over and this will go away, and we will always, as a society, want to gather back together, I think that the technology is here to stay, and working from home and doing remote learning is something that we found is we've leveraged that efficiency.
Absolutely. And that will continue, and it will require creativity beyond just the pivot, right? Because, use my yoga studio example, right? Everybody's online. So how do you compete? Well, the way we think of it is this. We say, if you have an ice cream cone and you're just talking about different sprinkles, that's what everybody else is talking about, right? And if you do that, you're going to be one of many, and somebody's going to give it away for free. So we would say things to a restaurant like, if you went back, but you're never allowed to have a physical space, what would you do? Right. And at first, it's a little bit of a shock to the system.
You bet.
But those are the ways that we have to ultimately do it.
And that's when you come up with the sugar cone.
Yep. And
the waffle cone.
Yep.
And you say, it's completely changed ice cream of the future.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
But I talked to a company earlier about how the restaurants have been able to pivot to carry out, and how that they will carry that forward as a way to say it's efficiency, and we're serving more clients than we can fit in our four walls. And so,
even why do 10 restaurants right next to each other all have to have a kitchen?
You're right. You could do a shared kitchen. So that's our next idea.
There you go.
The lonely cook.
Right. 100%.
Any thoughts on reopening? What you see that someone has done through this transition that was extremely innovative, creative?
Yeah, one guy had a business where he basically did camps for kids around sports, basketball camps and other types of camps, and as you can imagine, completely shut down. What was interesting was that he had 100 kids that he could handle, and one of the big parts of the 100 kids was some celebrity, some athlete coming in, right?
Right.
And he could only serve 100 because he had to provide the basketball and the training and all that kind of stuff. And we were like, if that's the most popular thing, why are you limiting it to 100, right? Now you've got an athlete that you can put in a forum like this. So we went from a week of two going, oh my God, my business is done, to, I think he said somewhere around 400% growth in his business. Cause now he was basically like, we can put this online with a celebrity.
Right.
and he went from 100 kids to 400 kids and people paying for that. So just creative ideas like that.
And the geography doesn't have to be within the hour. It can be within 100 miles that people can join that couldn't have done that before. And that's what we're finding here, is that people are coming online for coaching and training, attending webinars that maybe couldn't physically have visited our center, but can virtually. And that's as far as even travel as an efficiency in time. And so it's going to be a different world when we reopen.
100%.
We're going to be right back. We're talking with Michael Dermer, the founder of The Lonely Entrepreneur out of New York City. We're going to come back, Michael, and talk about your life journey, and all of those important things that we want to know about the founder. So don't go away. We'll be right back. As we go through this year of the pandemic, many of us thought that would only be maybe a few weeks, maybe a month. But now that it's gone on for months, people are realizing that maybe we're not going to be doing business the way we used to. Maybe business has changed forever. Whole workforces have pivoted to working from home. Schools closed, businesses closed, live events canceled. COVID-19 has pretty much turned our daily lives upside down. Dealing with a global pandemic has also made us rethink how we do everything. Schooling our children to serving customers, it's difficult. Any kind of change is difficult. But when you add to that all the uncertainty that comes with an unpredictable virus, a virus that could be fatal, it's no wonder that folks are feeling a bit stressed these days. So if you are feeling stressed right now, it's okay. You're normal. What you need to know is that you're not alone. Most everybody today is feeling the stress of the situation. Maybe in different ways, maybe with different circumstances, but believe me, everyone has been affected. It's okay not to be okay right now. You are allowed to take time for you to regroup and to recharge. I think there are some aspects of what we've found from working remote that are good, that we've learned to use different technology. We've learned new ways to stay in contact with each other and with our clients And I think even when things do get back to normal, whatever normal may be, that we'll find that some of these aspects of technology and video conferencing, online learning, all of those things will be carried forward into the new way of doing business. Remember, in times of chaos, there is always an opportunity. And we're back. My name's Jerry Ross. I'm your host for Everybody's Business, a weekly podcast presented by the National Entrepreneur Center. Today, we're talking with Michael Dermer, who is the founder of The Lonely Entrepreneur out of New York City. And Michael, now we're going to turn the spotlight on you. We've talked about the business and the economy. So tell me, where did you grow up?
I grew up in Bruce Springsteen country, Freehold, New Jersey, a suburb of central New Jersey.
And so were you a fan of the boss?
You have no choice but to be a fan of the boss. But always, about an hour south of New York, and my father, worked in New York. So even though we were in suburbia, very closely connected to New York City.
Yeah, I think if you're in the boss country, you have to be a fan. I'm from Ohio. You don't have a choice. You have to be a Buckeye fan. Right,
100%.
So what did you want to be when you grew up? Did you want to be a lawyer? Did you want to be an entrepreneur? What did you want to be?
Derek Jeter.
Derek Jeter.
Yeah, I was fortunate enough. Both my brother and I were really good athletes and played 3 sports in high school and 2 in college, and went to college on a baseball scholarship. And so really, despite my 5'9" frame, always could hit a baseball pretty good. So always had designs of playing shortstop for the Yankees.
So what position did you play?
I played shortstop my whole life, and in basketball at college played point guard.
So could you turn the double play?
Could turn the double play and always could hit. Back then, now it's everybody hits, but back then shortstop that could hit were a big deal because most of them, they were smaller and really good fielders, but couldn't hit, but always could turn on one. So
was sports your hobby growing up, playing mostly sports?
Yeah. We just right out of the womb, my brother and I really basketball, football, soccer, baseball, swimming. If there was a ball involved, we were fortunately really good at it for some reason. And did that all through high school. And so very typical kind of suburbia mom running around from game to game to game to game. And that was kind of the life.
You bet. We owe that to our parents.
Right. 100%.
Is your brother older or younger than you?
1 year younger.
1 year younger. Did you have a role model, somebody that gave you an aha moment or put you on the path? Yeah, there were really 2 or 3. First of all, my dad. My dad was the head of investor relations for a public company in New York City. And when they moved out of New York City to down to central New Jersey, when they had me, he had a long commute. He had an hour and 45 minutes each way. And he did that for 20 years. Wow. And I did it for a summer, and I was like crying like a baby. And it really showed you what it was like to be dedicated. You bet. Right. And that was always a role model. And the other is I had a couple of coaches, one basketball coach and one baseball coach who probably would be in jail today because they were so tough, but really, really pushed, not just to the edges, but stretched the edges of what it was like. They both were kind of obsessed by the perfect game, which is impossible to achieve. So pushed me to other types of levels that obviously you carry over into other parts of your life, hopefully anyway. Well, I think sometimes coaches are that influence that push you past what you think your limits are, and it pays off in everything you do for the rest of your life. Yeah, 100%. Jared, what we went through in 2008, everything seems easy compared to that, right? You get stretched to levels that you just never thought you could get stretched to. And I was a, M&A lawyer and an athlete. And so those early experiences when you're younger that stretch you, it just like people are going to be stretched now and they'll look back in 6 months and most things will seem easy. That's right. They're going through things today that they never thought they would be going through. And yet down the road, they say, I was through that. So this isn't that big a deal. And I think we used to practice, Jerry, with no gloves in baseball and baseball's getting hit at you with your eyes closed. They would be in jail. And they go, and you had no glove and you had to react. So you can imagine, they'd easily be in jail. But
it stretches you to like another level that you never thought you could get to.
You're right. You're right. It does. And so, and it's those experiences, I think, that sports do help build that kind of pushing the envelope. But you can also get that in lots of different ways. But I think it's the experiences that you have along the way that stretch those boundaries and teach you what you can do, even when you think you can't.
Yeah, and in the face of a lot of uncertainty, it's not like you can do it. You're really out on the edge, and then when you ultimately make progress towards it, it really gives you the ability to push yourself beyond where you thought you could go. So,
as an entrepreneur, having going through this COVID-19 shutdown, what keeps you up at night?
Just the ability for people to have the wherewithal to kind of fulfill their kind of promise, right? And because, Jerry, you and I have talked about before this whole idea, should you become an entrepreneur? Should you not become an entrepreneur? It's not so much about that for so many people. It's being an entrepreneur is not a job, it's an identity. It's you have ideas and things that are important to you that you don't want to put on the sideline. At the same time, people have bills to pay and people have, and so right now, especially in COVID, how can we as a country and how can we as leaders try to enable people to not only survive and set themselves up for the future, but to be able to be fulfilled, which is ultimately, bring those ideas to life and not look back and say, I wish I could have.
That's a fear I think many people have of looking back and say, I missed that opportunity or I didn't recognize my opportunity, especially in such a challenging time.
And, you don't know which ones the right ones or aren't. And you have a passion that you've had your whole life. And sometimes it's fine when you're 20, but not okay when you have a family in your 30s. So it's more chess than checkers. But at the same time, if you take a longer view of it, you want people to be fulfilled, whatever it means for them. And so, in many cases, more and more these days, that involves some level of entrepreneurism that allows them to kind of wake up every day passionate about what they're doing. To me, the worst thing that you can do, and the reason why we started Lonely Entrepreneur is it sounds like a hopefully marketing phrase, but we thought what better thing to do every day than to wake up and help people turn their passion into their reality.
Right. And sometimes that process helps someone understand that maybe they shouldn't be an entrepreneur. And that's okay. That sometimes when we're talking about people that are exploring entrepreneurial ideas, they come to the realization that's not for them. That stress box or that uncertainty is too much. And so, but that's okay because the world needs all kinds. And so, but I've also talked to people who have become entrepreneurs inside their corporation. And so we talk about being an entrepreneurial thinker wherever you are, because the majority of businesses in the US are small businesses. And so you may be hired to do one thing, but you're going to be required to be an entrepreneurial thinker because you're going to have to impact those small businesses that you're working for.
Well, it's almost like, what is your personal brand, right? Regardless of whether you're running your own business or you're inside a large corporation, what do you stand for? Do you stand for creative thinking, ownership, right? And that's, really kind of your stamp. And that stamp can happen obviously in a big company or it can happen on your own.
Sure. I started my career with Ohio Bell when they were going through divestiture. And so for me as a lifelong entrepreneur, it was a great opportunity inside a corporation to think creatively because we were going through a huge transition. So being an entrepreneurial thinker can happen anywhere in any corporation, including your own.
Yep. I think, Jerry, it's more entrepreneur used to be a job, right? And now it's a perspective.
That's I'm going to have to write that down as one of the Yoda statements from Michael Dermer. I want to wrap up with a few very important questions called rapid response bingo. So what is your favorite dessert?
Apple pie with vanilla ice cream. And I never eat it, but that's my favorite dessert.
What is your favorite movie?
The Sting.
The Sting. Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Movie or book?
The Art of War.
Sun Tzu.
You got it.
Favorite TV show?
Favorite TV show. You know what? I used to love this show called Taxi. It's an old sitcom.
Oh, yeah.
Where they never left the depot, and it was, the writing was just so satirical and good, and Danny DeVito.
That's my era.
Yep.
If you were taking a vacation, would you go to the beach or the mountains?
Beach. Ballet
or opera?
Ballet.
Beer or wine?
Bourbon.
Yeah, you're allowed to go outside the box. Well, Michael, I know how busy you are. I appreciate the time that you've spent with us today and sharing your experience. Are there any final words you have for our listeners?
No, I think, Jerry, first of all, I want to thank you and your organization for all that you do and our partnership. And I think that, the only thing I would say is that, passion and grit and a good idea are not enough these days, unfortunately. What entrepreneur doesn't have those things? And I think it's reaching out to folks that have been there before that can help you. Because we, folks like us, folks like the NEC, we really care. Like, we want to see people be successful. None of us have to do this. We've sold businesses. Like, the whole point of it is that we want to see people turn their passion into success. And there are people out there, not just us, but many others that have been there and done that. And you can really benefit from their experience.
Well, thank you for those words of wisdom. We appreciate your time today. If you're out there thinking about starting a business, or if you're looking to ways to grow your business, you don't have to do that alone. There are small business development centers all over the United States, SCORE chapters, the Small Business Administration of the U.S. government at sba.gov, or the National Entrepreneur Center at nationalec.org. These are all organizations that are built with a single mission, and that's to help you grow your business. And many times that help is free, which is my favorite F word, free. As an entrepreneur, you need to connect. You can be in business for yourself, but you don't have to be by yourself. We appreciate you listening today, and we'll come back with some final thoughts right after this.
If you have a business question that you would like to have answered, or if you would like to suggest a topic for discussion, we would love to hear from you. Just email Jerry at hello@nationalec.org. That is hello@nationalec.org.
And we're back for some final thoughts for today's episodes. What'd you think?
I think I'm really sore from the gym. So, yeah.
That's right. You're suffering through this today, aren't you?
It's a little painful.
But just remember, everything worth having is worth going through the pain to get.
Oh, yeah. It's a good pain. It's a good pain.
That's
just a reminder.
That's right. I feel the pain and I love it. So I'm putting words into your mouth. So just.
You are, but I feel it. I'm thinking it. It's like unagi.
That's the motivation to go to the gym tonight.
Yeah. We'll see.
There you have it. Final thought for today. Again, I'm going to visit the Mary Ross Book of Wisdom. It's come to me a couple of times this week, and I just thought I would share it before we wrapped up. My mom used to have a saying that said, use it up, wear it out, make it do, or do without. And that was a really quick way of her telling us that we weren't going to throw things away and buy new things just because they got old. If they were still working and still functional, you needed to use it up and wear it out, because we didn't really have the money to shop for new things all the time and buy the latest in things. And so I think for entrepreneurs, sometimes they need to know that lesson, that you don't need to have brand new furniture and you don't need to have the latest in technology to really make ends meet, because overhead costs kill. So you don't have to have the latest things. You don't have to have the newest things. Most of my furniture always came from a secondhand store in my different offices. Most of the time I had a used telephone system. And so as you think about your business, don't make the mistake of adding prices or adding expenses to overhead. Use it up, wear it out, make it do, or do without. So have you ever experienced that?
Well, I was just going to mention that I think the do-it-yourself trends is very popular currently now, because everyone does experience, when money's a crunch,
right?
Then, you have to improvise. And so My biggest thing is Pinterest. So I love to see, how I can use different things around the house. And I'm kind of a pack rat, so I don't throw anything away.
And I love to look at those things on YouTube that say, did you know you could use it in this way too?
Right?
Yes, exactly. So that's a way for every business to look around and say, how do I save money? If something's working, you don't have to get rid of it just to get the newest. You need to control your expenses and you need to watch your overhead because overhead kills. That's going to do it for today. We hope that you tune in again next week for Everybody's Business. And until next time, remember that you enjoy life because this is not a dress rehearsal.